In each of our live sections, we're going to begin by reviewing the documentation for the web calls. So with our yfinance, they have a very helpful and simple, easy to understand web page that is kept up to date, maintained, and it does a good job keeping it very simple and showing you how to call their API and grab the historical data you're looking for. So for our specific example, we're going to focus on utilizing what we can of what they've already written, and then grabbing a certain piece of historical data for a ticker symbol of our choosing using this .history method, and pass it a couple pieces of information, which I'll show you where those are defined here in a second. But the really cool thing about this is if you can piece through this as we go forward and understand where we're actually making the calls and how they're telling you to do it and what information they're telling you to pass, is that this can be pretty applicable for a lot of things you want to learn to use. If you want to learn to use APIs and other facets other than just pulling financial data. So for our specific example, they're defining a ticker, they're defining a text field here with a ticker, a yfinance ticker of Microsoft. So they're importing their module, defining it as YF, calling yf.ticker to assign this MSFT to this Microsoft ticker. And then down here they show you a list of those calls that you have available to you once you have assigned that, so that you can grab certain pieces of information. So again, for our example, we're going to use the .history so that we can grab historical data for that ticker symbol of our choosing. We, in our example, are going to pass it a period, but we're also going to pass it an interval. And if you want to see those deeper explanations of what you're able to pass these for the history call, they do even have detailed sections for that. So before we jump into that, just please pay attention and familiarize yourself. There are other things that we're not going to look at in here that you can grab if you want to see what dividends have been paid out for stocks, financials for the company, holders, balance sheets. You can grab those same pieces of information from this. So if those are important to you when you're analyzing companies and you're building out these data sets, it's pretty cool to know that, hey, I can grab financial information, but I can also make separate calls that might show me how the company is performing and what the outlook is in other areas that we're not going to cover here. So now again, for our history, we're going to pass it a couple pieces of information which are further defined a little bit further down in the web page here. So for example, you want to choose the ticker. So we know we've already assigned the ticker in their example, but we're going to assign that when we get into our call. We are going to select a time period of 2 days. So valid periods here, you can get pretty creative. They tell you certain things are valid, but experiment, because I can tell you that even with some of the documentation, you'll find that there's some things that are included in there that you may not be able to just glean from reading. But it's pretty straightforward to understand what the period needs to be. So in this example, they're using year to date. In our example, we're going to use a 2 day period. The interval at which you want to grab the information. So I want to grab, and for our example again, 2 days of information, and we are, for our data set, going to grab it at 1 minute intervals. So we're going to have 1 minute worth of data, every 1 minute's worth of data for 2 days when we perform our download. So you can also define other pieces of information in here, but we're really, for this example, going to try to keep it simple and stick with those two. And again, if you want to change up and look at 5 minute intervals, 15, even just daily intervals, that's okay as well if it fits your needs for your specific algorithms. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to our code and check in on our follow along example.